Well, good afternoon, and welcome everybody. Our chair is in the car right now, so I'll take a minute just to welcome everybody and have everybody introduce themselves. This is the Pillar 4 AIB Advisory Group. So I'm Ellie Mitchell. I am the vice chair of this group. I am head of the Maryland Out of School Time Network, and we're also the backbone for the Coalition for Community Schools. And I'll just let everybody go ahead and go around and introduce themselves and pass it to somebody else. So I'm going to pass it to Hope, and then we'll move from there.
Good afternoon. I'm Hope McGuire. I'm the interim community school coordinator in Montgomery County Public Schools. Happy to be here. I'm going to pass it to Joe.
Hi, I'm Joseph Mako. I am the education program officer at the Able Foundation, and I'm a board member on the Accountability and Implementation Board. And I'll pass it over to Jaden.
I'm Jaden. I am the student member for this pillar. Chandra, I believe.
I know she's driving, so she may have
trouble.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chandra Krantz. I'm the supervisor of world languages and English learning with Harford County Public Schools. And yep, I'm on the road, but I'm here with you all.
And Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Lisa Armstrong, policy analyst with the AIB, and I focus on Pillar 4.
Great. And Lisa, usually the first few minutes of this meeting, we get an update from Rachel, but if you could provide just kind of what's happening at the AIB right now that we should be paying attention to, that would be great.
Absolutely. All right. So right now we are in the midst of and pleased to be doing the work around reviewing the 2024 LEA plan submissions, and that has gone. We have followed and have helped guide the legislation for the Senate Bill 161 and House Bill 200, and those will be signed into law by the governor. And our own co-chair, Ellie, has done a lot of work behind House Bill 200, and not only providing key testimony, but also helping to really flesh out and write amendments for the bill. What else? We are anticipating, in regards to community schools, that in school year 2024-2025, there will be around 500 community schools across the states. So there will be an increase in the number of community schools. And also, we now have 3 LEAs who qualify as having over 40 plus community schools in their districts. Some questions for the advisory committee is confirm for us your new meeting dates today, and also when you all are planning for your next meeting, if you would like, or any other meetings. If you all agree upon inviting guest speakers, please let us know, because we like to give the guests as much notice as possible. And that's our update.
Thanks, Lisa. Is it only 3? Because I know it was Prince George's County, Baltimore City,
Montgomery County. Sorry, Baltimore County, Baltimore City, Prince George's County are the three.
But Montgomery County
In-
is still under 40 schools. Hope says you're over 40
So-
schools.
over
Montgomery
40.
County is projected to be over 40.
Okay. Okay, so it could be 4 LEAs.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that I had asked recently from MSDE was the list of the CPG eligible schools, which has not, as I understand, entirely been released or finalized yet. And so that is something that I think we should be working on, getting to school districts earlier and so that for their planning purposes. I realize that there's budgetary implications and the budget has to be passed, but at least the list, I mean, there's a formula for how the schools are identified, and it seems like we should be able to, the school district should be able to know what schools are going to be eligible, earlier than now, and definitely earlier than June, which I think was last year's final list. So something to raise as a potential concern. We have a list of topics which may or may not be kind of exhaustive, but one that might be useful to review. And one of the things I was hoping we would be able to achieve in this meeting is to prioritize these topics and assign who we want to have come speak with us and talk to us about these topics, so that we can lay out the next at least three meetings. That would be May, June, July, and actually get invites to those speakers. So let me share my screen if I can. Oh, I can't share my screen. But I was going to just show the agenda, which I can put in the chat for this meeting. And in the agenda, there is a list of topics that we could start. This doesn't have to be the end of the topic list. It is just one that we have put out before as possible discussions. And one that we just were discussing with Chandra was the ELL work group follow-up, the ELL implementation, the definitions that Chandra was talking about might be a really good conversation for us to have. Another one of those topics is how are we counting poverty? And I know MSDE is going through a new process to try to figure that out. And they've kind of abandoned the previous reports from the neighborhood or not abandoned, but maybe are going in a different direction from the previous reports on the neighborhood indicators of poverty. And so that seems like a big conversation. The outcomes and measures work group has pretty much done their work, and it's been pretty much incorporated into the implementation plan. But my understanding is that that might be a little bit iterative, and there may be opportunities for us to still discuss the outcomes and measures. And so having somebody from the outcomes and measurements work group or Emma from the AIB come and talk to us about what the thinking was for the Pillar 4 outcomes and what may still be in the works. So I would love for everybody to kind of weigh in here on what's not on the list already. What are we missing from these topics? And that's in the list that's in the agenda. And then kind of, if we could lay out as a group what we think May, June, and July should be, so we can get those invitations issued for speakers, the appropriate speakers. I think that would really help our work. So thoughts, ideas, things that we feel like maybe more pressing or more urgent, or things that we feel like we may be able to get the right speakers for at the right times. I'm really open to the order of things, but I think if we might be able to do 2 topics in a session too. We've been doing shorter meetings, but we could do a longer meeting and maybe have more than one guest and cover more than one topic at a time, potentially as well. So I'm open to suggestions about that too, particularly once we get out of the school year. We might have a little more mental space. So thoughts from this list. And I can also maybe take the list out of the chart and put the list in the chat. And
We have
again, this list doesn't have to be exhaustive. You can
We
add
actually
to
have
it.
it.
Okay.
One of the things that I would say is it would be great for potentially maybe the June meeting to have some updates on all community schools items, the legislation, the matrices, the implementations, the changes that are coming from that. I definitely would like for us to finally have a better understanding of why it does take so long for us to get our school list. I do know some have already just gone off their predictive list and shared. But we've had a time where that was done before and then that list was cut. So I'm not comfortable necessarily like in my district to do that. So just having one meeting that could be community schools, and I could see even adding the consortium of coordinated community supports grant with that one, just talking about those wraparound services. And then I would think in July's meeting, it would be great to get, that would give a lot more time for us to figure out who should be coming to us for ELL, EML, ESOL, all the definitions, getting us to understand how we're using that throughout the blueprint. And I definitely think we should have someone from MSDE, but we also should look at, does this impact us with any services that are also state-based for newcomers or different ones that we might need to present to this group as well. And then for May, I think AIB just coming to give us an update on all things that might be blueprint, because by that time they would have started reviewing and looking at different pieces. And so it would be great to know what is standing out for Pillar 4 as they've been looking at the different LEAs.
From the plans, the implementation plans. And maybe we could do the outcomes and measurements piece with that as well, kind of overlaid into that. Yes, Joe.
So one item that I think is going to be pretty timely, and we will probably be asked to give feedback, I would think in May, is around the targets for the initial set of outcome measures. So the outcome measures work group has been working and came up with the set of outcome measures that was voted on by or approved by the AIB in fall. And since then, the AIB team, along with the folks from the Maryland Longitudinal Data System and MSDE, have been working to set some draft targets that they're going to be bringing to the outcome measures work group, and then also to each of the advisory groups to get some feedback on. And then eventually the plan is for that initial tranche of targets for the first set of outcome measures will be brought in front of both the State Board of Education and the AIB during a joint meeting in June. So it looks like, hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll have that first set of targets for public review. And then that way, the advisory groups and the various work groups can go through and give some feedback on whether the targets that have been set are in that really, really nice space of being rigorous yet attainable, is I think what we are trying to shoot for. And that should be unfolding within the next month or so.
Yeah, so our next meeting is May 28th. At least as it exists on the calendar right now, assuming we confirm that schedule, stick with that schedule.
Yeah.
And that's the day before I go to Atlanta for the National Community Schools Conference. I hope you'll be there as well. But I'll still be here, and I think we could totally do that if we think that is doable for the May 28th date. Maybe have the sort of review of the implementation plans and the outcomes measure conversation together on that day.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm actually traveling down early to be prepared to participate in the meeting on the 28th, so we're good to go.
And then I guess I wonder then if it sets us up then if really May we're focusing on the outcome measures work group, then maybe June is a focus, like Hope was saying, around the community schools work. And, potentially then there can be also a report out from you and Hope on, what you had gleaned from the national conference and what are some best practices that are emerging, things that are going on around the country that we can learn from and that we can take and hopefully employ in Maryland.
Sure, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
And then July, Chandra, do you think that July would be a good time to tackle the ELL issues? Maybe with the new MSDE staff that are just coming on and maybe somebody from the ELL work group?
I think that would be fine. I think, before we begin a new school year and really delving into things, I think it'd be great then to establish or suggest to establish like common language and common definitions and an understanding of what all is happening with our EL population. I think July is perfect.
Great. Well, it sounds like we've mapped out May, June, July. Do we want to go as far as August and add another topic, or should we maybe stop with 3 months at a time? Seems to be all my brain can usually manage. But at the very least, I think I can follow up with some notes and send Rachel and Lisa kind of our wish list of people we want to have. I mean, it sounds like for June, we would definitely want and yes, I think we should go back to a longer meeting, the 1.5-hour meeting, so we have more time with these meetings. And I think for the June one, we definitely want to have Derek from MSDE, maybe even Mary, depending on all the things that we cover. The May one, it sounds like we would need somebody, it would be really an AIB staff that would need to be there do you think there's somebody else we would want? And somebody from the outcomes measurements work group? Would it be Emma? Who do you think, do you have recommendations as to who we would want to ask for May?
I mean, I think Emma would be the key person to ask. Yeah, I mean, I think she would be the key person to have at the meeting to present.
So if we did Derek for June, and then for July, we want to identify who the right people are at MSDE and maybe somebody from the ELL work group. Anybody know who those people are right off the top of our heads, or is that gonna just require some research? I can just put like placeholder in terms of the kind of person we want if we don't know names.
So I think from MSDE, you can ask Ilhe Yoon and Susan Spinato. From the work group, I believe Ilhe was part of the work group, so we might be able to get 2 for 1 there.
Yeah.
But I don't have the specifics at hand right now with the work group itself.
Does anybody know what timeline the MSDE is on around the neighborhood indicators of poverty issue? I'm just wondering if maybe we could bring that for August. Add that as just a placeholder.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm also wondering, Ellie, in group, if there would be value in during some of these sessions to also like bring some practitioners, like during the community school session, to have potentially maybe some of the time is designated for like 30 minutes with just like a panel of coordinators, like maybe new coordinators that are in community schools that have just emerged as a result of the blueprint, to hear a little bit about some of their challenges with implementation, how it's going, what their successes have been. Might be kind of a good way to level the conversation and really kind of root us in what's going on day to day in schools.
Yeah, I think we can definitely do that, and Hope probably has some folks that she could engage, since that's, she is the practitioner here at the table on that. One thing I did want to just mention, and I can drop the information into the chat, is that Anne Arundel County is doing some end of year showcases with all of their community schools. They're on Zoom. They're doing them in groups of schools. So you could just sign up, and they're just going to be sharing lessons learned and things that they have been achieving and accomplishing and stuff. So I thought that was a really great idea that they did that. And, you know, for members of the advisory board or others who are interested in hearing how implementation is going in one county, it would be a good way of experiencing that. So I'll drop that information in the chat in a second. But I think you're right. I think having some practitioner voice, Joe, would be great. So we'll definitely coordinate around that. Jaden, you've been awfully quiet. Any thoughts to add to our priorities or topic areas that we're missing? And of course, we're not doing our best job, I think, of engaging student voice on these things. So
You're fine. I'm busy. But I'll try and hop on the Anne Arundel meetings since I do live there.
yeah, let me find those for you. Okay. While I'm talking, so that was my main hope. So it sounds like I'm just going to recap for a second what we just set out, so that we can go through it. And then this is also a great time for us, as we were doing before we went live, to kind of share things that are coming up from the field that we think are important, that we need to put on our docket as well. So May, we're going to really talk about the LEA implementation plans, the themes, things that are emerging as maybe technical assistance needs, particularly around Pillar 4. And we're going to combine that with a conversation about the outcomes and measurements, where those targets might be being set, and how we might be able to give feedback around that. And we are going to invite Emma from the AIB to join us for that. If there's somebody else I should be putting on that invitation list, let me know. In June, we're going to do a big deep dive into community schools. We're going to have Derek. We're going to invite Derek from MSDE, maybe some of his team, if who he thinks needs to be there to answer these questions. But also some practitioners, some community school coordinators, maybe some LEA folks. So we'll figure that out. But from external to this group, we're really thinking Derek's the one. In July, we're gonna go deep dive on the English language learner portions of Pillar 4, and work on maybe these recommendations around some more common language and definitions to make implementation clearer, and also have folks from the ELL work group and or MSD, or that could be one person, and the folks that I have the notes down here for who to ask for at MSDE. And then as a placeholder for August, depending on what is happening in the world, we will hopefully have somebody from MSDE come chat to us about the neighborhood indicators of poverty, how we're going to be counting poverty, what that process is going to be like. Oh, and I missed during the community school that we could also highlight some of the grants from the consortium. Does that all sound like what we just discussed?
Yeah, and I think the good thing about August Day is that well, I know for MCPS that is the second day of school for the new school year.
So is that a bad thing or a good thing?
No, that's a great thing, because we would it would be great to know those indicators. So we would know, like, as we're supporting, whether it be for SNAP benefits or farms or we would know how we're supporting families in those indicator areas that they might be using. For instance, we've been looking at SNAP and who qualifies, and there's particular sections in SNAP guidelines that say undocumented with the exception. And so right now we see in the state of Maryland, the group that is listed in the exceptions is a very high group of families in our state. And so making sure that we are supporting them with getting those services. So I think those things will actually tie in perfectly with the beginning of the school year. And knowing when we go we seek farms applications and other resources to support families.
Yeah, so you're the perfect county who has raised once again this challenging issue around how we're counting the poverty. Because you guys, because of community eligibility efforts, you had some schools end up being removed from the Title I rolls. And so there's all these different cut points, right? There's who's getting Title I, who's CPG eligible, and how are we counting with community, assuming that community eligibility implementation is probably going to spread because we didn't get any kind of universal meals program this year in the legislature. I wasn't expecting that to pass, but you know, I think we really need to figure this piece out. So I know that we could get updates on it as the summer goes on too, if things move and something happens.
And that could actually be presented when Derek comes to speak at the community school.
As well, right.
We've already been told that the CEP does not impact community school status.
Correct.
They're looking at past years and their 3-year average. So they're sticking to those farm rates from prior. So that does help us with knowing what they're currently using.
Yeah.
To move forward for those next few years that we have already identified what the percentage is to be identified, which is 55%. So I think that would be a great time to kind of loop that in as well.
And Hope put all the dates that we have on the calendar in the chat. So thank you. Are there any dates that give people pause or concern, or should we just stick to our newish schedule for those dates? And I'm fine with all these dates, can work with them all. But I just wanted to, I know the 28th is getting near the end of school. The 25th will be, you know, people travel in the summer months and do stuff. August will be the first week back for most people. But there's never a good time, right? Never entirely a good time for things. So I just want to make sure we're chugging along and we're committing to these dates.
I prefer these dates because
What?
they do fit right now. Everything fits perfectly. So if we change them, that's when it's going to be.
Right.
That would
Sometimes
be
it's
more of
even
an
worse.
issue.
You lose more people when you change things around than all right. So back to the AIB's question. We're going to stick with the dates that we have on the calendar now. We are going to do the longer period of time, so the 4 to 5:30, so that we have a little bit more time to dig into things. And I will send a set of notes to Lisa, to you, and to Rachel A, with our requested speakers, guests, etc., and topics for the next 4 meetings, if that works for everybody.
That's perfect.
Awesome. So that was the main goal for us today, but I think since we are together and we're here, I really do, and I am still going to put those Anne Arundel links in the chat. I really do want to hear from folks. We've already raised several things that are out in the field. And just would love to hear what's happening, and questions that we should also be thinking about for future conversations. So thoughts, things to share.
I was given wait time. I was a fourth grade teacher before, so. One of the things I definitely would like to bring up is just making sure that we understand, one, from community school perspective, but just the differences in the LEAs. Kind of going back to our conversation about rural community schools versus non-rural areas. And when we're looking at some of those matrices, making sure that they do kind of align to the LEA that they sit in. Like, I don't know if it's a way when we get to that conversation in May, just thinking about what does that look like? Because it will be different depending on what is available in certain areas. So I'm always advocating for anybody's side that helps with community schools. It would be good to know how the consortium grants are being incorporated across different LEAs, even if it was just a quick little share out on a Google form with community schools, or are they using it more so for their entire school district supports? Because I know it has been highlighted in, being a part of wraparound services, but it's wraparound services that all students could benefit from. And so some places are targeting the consortium grant, I think, to their community schools services, and some are doing it district-wide. So it would be good to see how more of those applications and different things. So if that was someone that could share information with us, and kind of cross-reference a little quick guide to say, hey, yeah, these LEAs have this many schools, this is how this is being used, that would be beneficial for us.
Right.
And definitely getting the list early.
Yeah, so I'll say that for me, right now, getting the list is high on the list. And then we will be revisiting the original intent of 161-200 going into next session. And I think we'll probably do a simpler bill to just have the flexibility for the under 40 districts as a standalone bill instead of adding a lot of other things to it. I think they'll either kill it or it'll be an easier bill to explain. And we'll work through it that way, because I know that the districts with fewer than 40 schools are very disappointed that did not go through. I have concerns as ARP money runs out and Maryland Leads money runs out, how school districts are going to be supporting their community school implementation in the post 2025, and because that's where a lot of the smaller districts had resources applied to. What they were implementing was through those two pots of funding. So we shall see. Hopefully we'll have I'm glad that there's, I'm always down with more reporting. I'm glad that there's more reporting in the blueprint for community schools based off of the new legislation. But I want to make sure that people have what they need to really do this right. And get the support they need to do it right as well. So I know it's it's really already a sea change having Derek and Dulce in the office and being able to field questions. But if you think about 500 plus community schools and 24 jurisdictions and 2 people, being the full extent of the the infrastructure. I think we have to really still continue to look at that, and maybe think about what, you know, how AIB investments in technical assistance, you know, the grants that have been issued so far in terms of LEA, technical assistance, maybe there's a way that some of those dollars can support some community school, you know, there was a one-time investment from MSDE to Children's Aid, to do some of the training that they've done, but that's not, you know, in the budget going forward. So, we're gonna really, so we have a little bit of a cliff around support and training and all that good stuff for community schools, with new schools still coming on, people who still are brand new to community schools and still need that orientation and grounding and the principles and practices. And so a lot still happening on that front. So those are the things that we've been observing. Yeah, just, but yeah, it's still so much better just having the office at MSDE, and the work they've been doing has been quite good, and we're very pleased, and they've been very open to collaboration and conversation. So that's been great. Anybody else have observations from the field, things they want to add? Things we should be adding to our list? I know what we've had 4 months marked out, but that doesn't mean we can't put additional topics for discussion or exploration on the horizon.
The only other one I would make sure to bring up, and it's a state shortage issue actually, is behavioral health services and the capacity of providers within our state. What can be done to support that in this work? That is a part of Pillar 4 still, with those services that support behavioral health services for students and families. And so one of the things I think we also have to be mindful of is that we have very few trying to spread across a multitude of school districts and students. And so what is the plan to support, whether that be programming through universities and partnerships to expand services of people who are in the human service field to actually meet the requirement of what is needed in the blueprint when it comes around behavioral health services, because everyone is selecting from the same candidate pool. So someone might come up short, and so we need to figure out how can we enhance the amount of candidates who are high quality candidates that could be in this pool for all of the students in the state. Is the only other thing that I would share today.
Yeah, I know that that's been a thought process around the childcare pieces, and there was some legislation this session to support transitioning people into qualified roles there. So, we really haven't thought about pipelines for behavioral health. And there are also, so yeah, we have all these great resources for some of these things, and not enough humans or organizations to actually fulfill the dreams that we have and the demand that we have for all of that. So that's a really great point. Any other from the field, voices from the field, kinds of things? Well, I am pleased that we got to meet. It's been a minute. I'm also pleased that we've mapped out our work for the next 4 months. Did everybody get their their nice hard copy. Um,
I did.
so I recommend that in prep for May, you all take a really deep look at this. If you haven't gotten your hard copy and you want one, Lisa, I'm sure they could still get it. Is it still possible? I'm sure everybody's gotten them. Yeah, it sits next to my computer.
Yes, if anyone needs one, just let me know.
Because the outcomes and measures are incorporated into the book. And there's a lot in here, I think, for people to just kind of chew on and maybe go through and mark your questions and highlight things that you really want to know where LEAs have landed on these things and stuff like that. So I would recommend homework for May. Otherwise, we will reconvene on Tuesday, May 28th at 4 o'clock. That will be an hour-and-a-half session. I will be sending these notes over about making sure we get Emma invited to that session. Joe, if you have any other thoughts for me on any other people you think should be there, let me know, or Lisa. Yeah, I think we've got a path forward.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Sounds good. All right, then I'm gonna give you guys back 12 minutes of your life. And we'll be ready and raring to go for our May meeting with all of our and information ready to go. So
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Great meeting. I will
right.
stop recording.
So I'll write that
Okay.
all up, Lisa. So you guys.
I took notes as well.
And I'll
So,
send it
yes.
over. Yeah.
Okay, that works.
And that way we can be ahead of the game for once.
Right. Exactly. We want to get Pillar 4 Advisory Committee back on track. You all were the front runners and now you're falling behind a little bit. And I wanted to remind you and Chandra, but I know she's busy with her family, that you are set to present to the board in the May meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and Rachel A and Rachel H will have a meeting with you both before that happens.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm good to go.
All right, wonderful. And if there's anything I can help you with, let me know. I will just put a bug in Emma's ear about the May meeting as well.
Right.
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank
Have a
you
good
so much.
evening.
You too.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Bye-bye.